I've seen it. And I can't unsee it. You know, I remember a time before this movie. It seemed like children laughed more. There were concerts in the park. You could hear birds singing. And now only darkness. Only rain. Only pain. Look away, Chewy. I don't want you to look at me right now. Mr. Chirpy, your stoicness is appreciated at these hard times. So, that's a thing that exists. Sadly. You know, my friend Elizabeth and I normally go to see movies on Fridays sometimes. And I thought for a moment about inviting her to come experience this with me, and then I thought better of it, because I felt that if I was going to expose anyone to this, it should only be me. You shouldn't subject other people to this. Okay. Let's do this. You know, before I came and saw this movie, well, let's back up even further. So nothing came out this week. Like, nothing. Except this and the Peter Rabbit film, both of which looked more awful than the other for completely different reasons. And what finally made me land on this was two things. Number one, the fact that I'd been aware of it, as most people have, for quite a number of years, but I'd never actually experienced it. So there's that. There's this thing where you're always hearing on the periphery, kind of like when I went and saw Batman v Superman way back, you know, a year or so ago when I first started doing these. I'd heard the reviews. I'd heard how bad it was. But it's one of those things where it's like you need to experience this for yourself. You can't always rely, especially with the internet, and I've said this during other videos, especially with the internet being the internet, and sometimes you feel like they just pick something and decide they hate it and just write it regardless. So that kind of leads to reason two, and that is I feel that if I'm going to badmouth something, as I have badmouthed this, oh, Mr. Chirpy, he's down. The movie did it to him. Oh, don't leave me now. Oh, God. Oh, that's okay, buddy. I'm feeling that way too. Anyway, sorry, brief diversion while we fix Mr. Chirpy. Anyway, I've badmouthed this on a couple videos, and then it kind of dawned on me, kind of this rule I try to live by, and that is if you're going to badmouth something, you should at least witness it. You know, like a couple years ago, I kind of knew from the previews that the Amazing Spider-Man movies were going to suck, but I had no right to badmouth it if I hadn't watched it. So it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, let's do this. Let's put, you know, after seeing this movie, everything I can think of to say just sounds dirty now. Okay, I'm gonna take a drink of this water and not even look away while I do that. I'm sorry. So I decided to put my money where my mouth was and go, all right, let's check this out and see what we've got. And Jesus Christ. You know what this movie is? You know what this whole film series is? I'm going to piss some people off here. And I don't really care. This film series is the movie equivalent of Donald Trump. 50 Shades of Grey is an offshoot of the Twilight phenomenon. And way back in the day with Twilight, we all said, this is the worst thing ever. It can never get worse than this. How can anything be worse than this? And then, lo and behold, this comes along. And it's like, oh, that's how. So much so that that thing you hated now seems almost innocent and sweet by comparison. God. Oh my God, everything about this fucking movie. Okay. So, let's start with this. This one is not as outwardly offensive and mind-numbingly maddening as its predecessors. I've watched the recaps of the original two to kind of get ready for this. You know, I've watched, Cinema Sins and all that, kind of get the basic story. And, from everything I've gathered, yeah, those two are way more offensive in terms of just how there are just red flags everywhere with this relationship. And, any sane person would have run screaming from it. So, there's not as much of that here. The film starts out with them getting married, but lo and behold, much like with the Post where we learned the valuable lesson that the Nixon administration was a touch shady, here we learn that a relationship built entirely on rough sex might not be the most stable. Well, color my ass shocked. So yes, this film is just, it's all over the fucking place. So there's the whole, they can't decide what it is. There's the whole, them being married and enjoying the life of rich white people who enjoy kinky sex. And then there's this odd subplot about, I guess, some guy from the second movie who was her boss, who is actually like a deranged person, more deranged than her fucking husband. And apparently it turns out that her husband and this guy were in foster care together, and, that's amazing that never came up before. And so this guy is like all nuts and tries to kidnap her and like doesn't, and then kidnaps it's like, and I say, this sounds more complicated and interesting than it was, because this makes up about, I'd say maybe 5% of the movie. Like, they kind of drop this subplot back in just every so often to pad the runtime. And every time they build up, or like very early on, the psycho guy, and this is how unoriginal the writing and everything in this is. Yes, I'm jumping on the bandwagon of hating on this, so pardon me, I sat through it. How unoriginal this movie is, and the writing is. The bad guy's name is literally Mr. Hyde. I mean, seriously? Okay. But anyway, there's a scene fairly early on where Mr. Hyde breaks into their apartment and tries to kidnap the living real doll there, and gets thwarted. And so this is fairly traumatic, but you know what? We're not gonna worry about that anymore. We have another rich person's vacation to go on. And more weird sex to have. They have sex like every 3 minutes in this movie. And again, I'm not surprised by that, because, that's kind of what these movies are built on, so I'm not surprised by it. What I'm surprised by is that this movie honestly believes that it is this incredibly steamy and erotic and all this shit, and it is none of that. It is none of that. Folks, this is not the early 90s. Okay? When Cinemax and late night Showtime were the only way to get your softcore jollies. And let me go on record as a former teenage boy who used to love staying up late on the weekends and, watching some of those were hotter than any of the sex scenes in this. But at any rate, we are now in 2018. Any episode of Game of Thrones is about 1 billion times sexier than this. But this movie is convinced that it is just taking the audience to new heights of titillation. I compared this before I saw it, but I'm going to compare it again. Compare the sex scenes in this to the sex scenes in Professor Marsden and the Wonder Women, and that, even though it did not show anywhere near as much, those sex scenes are a billion times hotter. Maybe it's because it was populated by likable characters who actually had chemistry. You know, maybe that was the Rosetta Stone that unlocked the key. I'm harping on things that everybody and their brother has already harped on, but it's my turn now because I sat through it. And now I get to say it. God almighty, is this some of the shittiest acting I have ever seen in my frickin' life. Dakota Johnson, or whatever her name is, I didn't think there was anyone that was going to make Kristen Stewart look good. Well, honey, congratulations. She is... I'm sorry, I'm sure she's a lovely young woman in real life. I'm not trying to be rude to her as a human being, but I'm sorry. In this movie, she is a live-action real doll. With her facial expressions, her little squeaky voice. And if she did that little baby doll laugh one more time. It's so forced. Oh my God, these people fake it like hookers being paid by the moan. Literally. And this whoever it is playing Dorian Gray, I know he was on that Once Upon a Time show for a couple episodes. He's on a very good British show with Gillian Anderson called The Fall. So he can in fact act, but he does not do so here. Does not do so here, not even a little. And what's funny is that there's a couple scenes where his British accent starts to come out. And he's trying to force it back, and that caught me as funny. Man, oh yeah, everything about this fucking movie is just wrong. It is wrong, and I'm coming at it from not. And yes, there is the wrongness of the attitude of it. At one point, he uses sexual torture to get back at her. And she's just, okay. And, you know, spoiler alert, fuck you kind of thing. They, of course, say, well, I don't want to have kids. I'm too messed up to have kids. I'm not going to be a good father, and blah, 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 blah. So, of course, you know where this is going. Of course, she gets pregnant. And not surprisingly, the guy who has made it pretty clear that he's, and not just in his words, but in his actions, that he is not suitable to be a father, is not happy about this. And she's surprised that he's not happy about this. Both of them are stupid in this. I will say this. Let me get on this. Let me praise this movie for one scene. There are two scenes in this movie that are actually not bad. One line and one scene. The one line is, so after Mr. Hyde breaks in and tries to kidnap her, and their security thwart it, there's this line where they've got him on the ground, and the two security people are like, we need to restrain him. Well, I don't have anything. And she's like, oh, we've got, I can find something. And that was actually a genuinely funny line. I had to admit that. But there is this scene, like, after she finds out she's pregnant, and they have the fight and all that, where she basically lays into him about it's time for you to grow up. I'm sorry you had a bad childhood, but you're not a child anymore. I know you're upset I got pregnant, but pregnancy happens when you have a lot of sex, which we tend to do. It was like for the first time, it felt like the movie was actually self-aware of the sheer shitheadedness of its characters. It didn't last, but for that brief moment, it was like, I was kind of like, oh, that was actually a good scene, and somebody finally said what I've been thinking for the last 2 hours. But, there are times when you just go, what? Like, towards the end there, when she's like, oh, you're gonna make a great father. What? No, he's fucking not! No! Folks, I hate to tell you. People this fucked up who will use sexual torture on the person they supposedly love, I don't believe they would make a good father, to be completely honest with you. Don't lie to the man. A baby is not going to fix him. Okay. Yeah. There is just so much in this movie that like every frame is wrong. Everything is just bad, and it's not bad to a point of offensive like the other ones, from what I understand. I was never offended at this movie, like for its portrayal of people who enjoy this kind of sexual lifestyle or anything like that. Like, the movie didn't offend me. It just baffled me at the sheer level of bullshit in every frame, every line, and its smug self-satisfaction that it is doing something oh so naughty. This is how, okay, this, not that I wanted to see this, but this is how naughty this movie is. They never shoot either one of these main people from the waist down when they're having sex. They'll walk around topless, but they never show him from the waist down, they never show her from the waist down. That's how naughty this movie is. I mean, this movie is literally neutered. Not that seeing any of that would have made it better. Not that if, you know, the sex... I'm not trying to advocate I want the sex scenes to be more graphic. What I'm saying is... Don't smile and wink at me like you're doing something risque and brilliant when you are delivering something less sexy than a 90s Skinamax feature. I mean, you have not earned this. The fact that the sex they're having is shocking does not make it titillating, folks. It just doesn't. Oh, fuck me. You know, I've been saying it for like weeks. I remember when I used to see good movies. It was not that long ago. At least I don't think it was. It feels long when I look back and see it's like the fifth or sixth movie I've seen that is just pure crap or dull as hell. But I remember the day at, Christmas. I remember after my parents left, I went and saw one pretty good movie and two really brilliant movies all in one day. So they were there. They're gone now. All right, final grade for this one. No surprise. Final grade for this is an F. An F as in fuck you. Which is what this is this movie's favorite pastime, both fucking itself and fucking the audience. Yeah, this movie is every bit as bad as you've heard. It is every bit as bad as it's been made out to be. I won't say it was, overtly offensive, but I will say that it was bad. So this is an F. This is a dead set F, folks. And I don't know what I was expecting. I legitimately don't know what I was expecting. Shield your eyes. Run, people. Run, for this movie will haunt your dreams and cloud your mind. This film, I believe, could be classified as a war crime for how bad it is. Oh, for the love of God. Almost as bad as this guy's driving. Almost. So, another one down, another one bites the dust, and I see a light at the end of the tunnel, because next week Next week's one of the ones I've been looking forward to, that everybody's been looking forward to. It looks awesome. From everything you hear, early reviews, it's going to be awesome. So please, God, I need the relief. I need something awesome. So let's hope this puts an end to the dry spell of shit. So until next time, dear viewers, drive safe, and I will hopefully see you at some better movies.